Welcome to Selling in the Age of AI.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So,
Must-listen podcast for sales professionals who lean into technology without leaning on it. Dive into the future of sales with your hosts, the dynamic and inspiring Frank Somma, renowned keynote speaker, best-selling author, seminar leader, and business coach. Get ready for game-changing insights and strategies that value technology but place humanity at the top of the sales pyramid.
Welcome everyone to Selling in the Age of AI. I'm Frank Somma and I am thrilled to have Anthony DelGrosso as my guest today. Anthony DelGrosso is the Regional Vice President and General Manager at Milner South, responsible for overseeing all business operations, including sales, service, and operations across Florida and the Northeast, with nearly 2 decades of success driving growth at industry leaders such as Milner, Flowtech, and Xerox. Anthony has established himself as a top strategist in sales and operations within the technology sector. Anthony was named ENX Difference Maker in 2024. He's also a 2-time recipient of Milner's Region of the Year Award. He frequently shares his expertise at notable industry events, speaking on the impact of AI in business at the BTA conference, and addressing the Executive Connection Summit in 2025. Beyond the stage, he was a guest at Mike Stramaglio's Next Week Life Tech podcast, where he discussed the importance of bringing energy and passion to leadership. Anthony's dedication to the community engagement is evident in his service to organizations, and this means a lot to me, Anthony. This part of it we're going to talk about.
of course.
Such as the Tampa Metro Corp YMCA, Bronx Works, RAIN, and End Abuse for Good. Recognized for his philanthropic efforts, he received the prestigious Man of the Year Award from the Needlers Foundation, children charity organization's CAR in 2024. A graduate of Brookdale College and former NCAA men's varsity baseball player, Anthony was part of the College World Series team, He continues to strengthen his leadership acumen and business expertise through ongoing advanced coursework in management, sales, and strategic development. Anthony, I am thrilled to have you here, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Frank. Happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to come on the show today, man. I'm doing good.
You know, I'm the part about all of the good work that you're doing is so interesting because in my book, I remember writing a line saying, Superman didn't get those superpowers so he could bust down the walls of a bank and rob all the money and be rich. He used his powers for good. And I think when you're blessed with the ability to have a convincer's strategy and to help facilitate business, and you're good at moving things along, I think you owe it to the universe to give some of that talent to organizations like you did, Bronx Works, RAIN, Tampa Bay Metro, YMCA. What led you into this kind of philanthropy?
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree with you more, Frank. I mean, there are so many people that, we're fortunate, right? I'm blessed with a beautiful family, as are you. And, we've been able to establish careers, and part of that thing is there's some folks that aren't as fortunate as us, where they have some sort of challenge or they are growing up in a tougher situation, and I feel like we owe it to the community to give back where we can. And I was involved in a lot of the stuff when I was in New York, and when I got down to Florida, fortunately, Milner does a lot on a few different major topics, and it was just a great fit to get involved and give back. It feels great to do that, and you're helping your community and you're building your community, and it's feel like it's almost like an obligation, right? So that's just something I've been super passionate about, and I was very lucky that I've been able to surround myself with folks that have like-minded goals with that.
That's fantastic. It's nice to see, and I hope message number one to all the sales professionals that listen. Think about something that's happened within your family, your friends, your community, something you can get passionate about, and loan some of your skills to these organizations. They need you. It's not just about writing a check. You can give of yourself a little bit, and you can't give anything away. The more you do, the more wonderful connections, the more your life will get enriched anyway.
Oh, of course.
So, Andy, reading in your bio about your expertise and speaking on the impact of AI in business at the BTA event. Tell me about that. What was your talk about? What did you talk about in terms of AI and tell us who BTA is.
Yeah, so BTA is the Business Technology Association for small to mid-sized copier and technology dealers throughout the country. Great organization, and they put two events on a year that are really fantastic if you're in the business. And the topic was, hey, how are you integrating AI into your business? And we really broke it down into three components: sales, service, and internally, how are you using it for automation and business processing? And it's an interesting conversation. Is everybody hears about it, as you mentioned earlier. Everybody doesn't understand it, and they think, "Oh my gosh, it's going to come take my job away." But it's quite the opposite. It's a great complement to everything that you're doing, and it just increases the velocity of which whatever challenge you're looking to overcome, you're able to.
So if we talk about AI, then what do you think AI does well in sales, and where do you think it falls short?
Yeah, so a couple things, right? So number one, data analytics. It allows you, say, if I'm a salesperson and I want to create a list of accounts or prospects to go after,
Right.
I can get it done like that, right? I could get the right accounts, I can get the right people, I can get the trends, I can get really, really granular, and it'll take me a fraction of the time if I had to go and do the research myself.
Okay.
The second part of it is you could automate a lot of tasks, right? You could send out emails, you could send out, you could create a whole drip campaign where you load the data that just took you no time to put together into various systems, and it'll go out and it'll do all your scheduling as far as the email campaign, getting information out to the field, getting responses back, and how to handle that in a timely manner, right? So that's great. And it allows you to automate your responses as well, right? So if somebody says, hey, not interested, it can kick out a quick response and then add them to a separate list. So it really assists in the prospecting part, the account building part, and the research part of a salesperson, right? And the last thing I'll mention about it is, you're a salesperson and you want to learn about an account, or you want to learn about somebody in an account or an industry. You could do that research in a matter of seconds with any of these major models, where you type in, tell me about trends in the legal industry, specifically in litigation or whatever,
Right.
or whatever it is, and you get the answer right away. Like, there's no trying to piece together data. There's no more, hey, I'm going to go to 10 different websites and look it up. Like, you can get all this stuff very, very quickly. And the folks that are using it are definitely gaining a competitive advantage.
So in your industry, right, in office automation, salespeople can use this technology in the way that you just said. I think part of it is just being able to, wrap your arms around so much information. You can't possibly remember every person that said no,
Of
but the
course.
idea of capturing this information and going forward is pretty cool. It's kind of an enhancement, I guess, to what the CRMs have done before.
Absolutely. It's an unbelievable enhancement. It's like you can compare it to sports. It's like a PED for sales folks.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an unbelievable differentiator in a marketplace.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So maybe in all the time you've been out in the field, et cetera, talk about, if you would, a little bit, what makes a good salesperson? What do you think are the chief components that go into being successful in selling?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I would say empathy, right? You have to be the people that can see the business through their customers' eyes, major separation there, right? There makes them elite. They're not thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about their commission or how much they can make. It's they want to look at the business through their customers' eyes, and how can they solve that problem for their customer.
Okay.
Number two, they're great listeners, right? They hear what the customer is not saying, right? They listen. They're observant. They're able to ingest the information. They listen really, really well, and they could hear what they're saying and what they're also not saying. And then the last thing, which is the number one thing, is they're resilient, right? You get told no as a salesperson a million times in a week, and that's part of the deal. And those people that are resilient, and they go after it day in and day out, and take the no's and they take the lumps and they keep going. Those are the ones that win. I mean, I've only worked at a few places, and I've had the opportunity to work with some unbelievable people, and the ones that are like maniacal about prospecting and are resilient and are constantly reinventing themselves and they're students of the game. Those are the ones that win out, and they're few and far between those top people. So, I mean, those are to me some major qualities that a machine's not going to replace.
Anthony, it's interesting because most salespeople have been conditioned by the archetype the media has put out there for us to think that what they say is what makes the difference in the sale. But to me, you emphasize listening. Tell me about how you teach that, or what your experience has been with people. How do they become good listeners, and what kind of yield does that bring them?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's something that you're going to learn it over time, right? I think that the folks that come out and they talk, and all it takes is a couple quick losses, and they're like, "Oh, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong?" And it's that parking lot coaching, it's the curbside coaching. It's hey, here's what did you hear from the customer? And then they're like, "Oh, well, I told them all the good stuff," and you could stop it right there. Well, you told them. Well,
Right.
like what 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 did they say? Like what was the real feedback behind what they said? Like what's the real objection? And it's that constant reinforcement and it's the constant coaching, but it's really taking the scenario, breaking it down, and then pulling it apart. And that's to me, on-field coaching is the best coaching that you can give. You could read it in a book and you might get some good skills from it, but it's the folks that are out there that you have that conversation after something negative happens. And I'd say you really, try listening, try really understanding what they're saying, and then come back with your rebuttal. Let them talk, understand what they're saying, and then come back with your next strike. That's the best way I've seen it work, and that's it's served me well with developing sales executives.
Anthony, it takes a lot of patience to do what you just said. And I had another guest on the podcast, Mike Reddington, who's a certified forensic interrogator. And what he was talking about is that to have the patience to be able to do what you just said, to listen to what's being said and what's not being said, is you have an outcome in your brain. And I think the best people understand that it's okay if the conversation goes a little bit in different
Of
directions.
course, yeah,
And I think that's the ability to listen, right? To listen to where it's going, but always understand the outcome that you're
yeah.
hoping to achieve, which may be the sale, if it's the best outcome for you and your client, or it may be to take a step back and say, what I had in mind wasn't right. Like, do you find that people have a tough time not, being able to have the patience to let the prospect go through?
Yeah, look, I think some people do. The best don't, but the ones in that middle group sometimes such have challenges with it. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, there's no cookie cutter sale, right? You like to think there is. Everybody said, "Hey, go in and do this and follow these 5 or 6 steps." But a lot of in real life situation, like that's not how it always goes. And who knows if it's wobbling back and forth. A lot of times you find more opportunity if you're asking the right questions and you're listening to what you're hearing.
That's a good point. So, why do you think it is in your industry that, Jeff Bezos hasn't come in and created point and click technology for VoIP, copier printers, all this kind of stuff? What is it that still allows your business to thrive with people to people technology?
Well, I think you have a couple things. Number one, if you're going to click and buy something, what what problem is it solving, right? Okay, so it prints. There's no customization, there's no feeling to it, there's no long-term partnership piece, right? I think people buy from people. I don't think that that'll ever change. I think some of the smaller stuff that are fully commoditized at this point, sure, it's easy to go on there and buy it. And if you need a copy machine or whatever, okay, cool. Small place, want to buy a desktop, go on Staples or wherever and buy it. I get it. But what I could tell you is like there's no connection there. You're not solving a problem. You're not creating an ROI. You're not building a relationship. And I think there's always going to be a piece of business that needs to stay in that lens, right? So I don't think it ever gets fully replaced. I mean, you look at some of these manufacturers that have tried to do that, where, hey, we're going to go to an inside sales model, or we're going to go to a, hey, you can go online and buy it model. It hasn't worked yet, and I just don't see how it can work.
You think it's just too nuanced to do that? That there are, pieces that have to be vetted out between people in order to figure out the solution?
I listen. I think I don't know that clicking on something online will ever work. I think that it's always going to require some sort of interaction with a person to really drive that portion of the business. If I answer your question right, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just how I see it.
I mean, Anthony, thinking back through your career, can you think of a time where your relationship was the deciding factor in a substantial sale?
Yeah, I mean there's a few that come to mind. I mean, we took down when I back in probably 2010, I guess, we took down one of the larger law firms in New York, and now it's largest in the country, one of the largest in the country. And I was in there with the sales rep and a specialist, and we divided and conquered. Everybody latched on to a person at a different level in the account, and we built that trust, and we understood the people, and we built a relationship, and you have real conversations, and we were all real humans to these people. And that's, you talk about being different, right? It's that connection. It's, seeing the business the way the customer sees it, and most importantly, how that person individually sees it, right? And
Okay.
what some of their challenges are. And that was really differentiating. It was, you know, just under $1 million, a huge transaction.
That is huge.
But that was it, man. I mean, we just did a great job of dividing and conquering it, latching on to certain people, and then that just gives you yeah, to me, that's a major competitive advantage. And we got plenty of instances of it, even down here in Florida. We have one of our larger customers. Things change, people change, and people change roles, and you build that relationship throughout the companies, and you're able to maintain a customer, and it's really because of those relationships that you built. Um, so yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that is super, super important, and it's definitely served me well over my time.
It is important, and I think day to day, maintaining that relationship, building it, making it stronger and deeper, is something that we can use the technology for, right? We can have the technology. I want salespeople to use these kind of air quote phrases. I want them to lean into technology, but I don't want them to lean on the technology. I
Sure.
want them
Yeah.
to, be who you are and understand that people do business with people they like, they do business with people they trust, they do business with people that refer them. So making those human connections, but I think the constant rebuilding, right? People, you were just saying, people at businesses change, they change roles, etc. So, how do you coach your salespeople to continue making relationships? What are some of the things the best of them do to make sure that they're not just showing up at lease renewal time?
Yeah, well, it's, making sure they're doing their QBRs every 90 days, right? That's one of the number one things. And that's
And
a big
QVR
miss.
means?
Quarterly business reviews. They're
Okay,
going to see their customer every 90 days, right?
right.
It's not a show up at the 36-month mark or the 60-month mark saying, hey, great news. It's time for you to sign another agreement, and you
Right.
haven't seen me in 58 of the months, right? So it's that reinforcement of, hey, what are you doing to provide value to that customer throughout that time, right? So much changes, especially, and if you look at when AI came out, it's been a few years now, but it's gotten exponentially better
Sure.
very, very fast, right? Well, so is the rest of the technology. How have your customers evolved? How has, coming out of COVID, right? So many things have changed in people's organizations where you gotta go in there and create that value and be that advisor, because not every day is a great day, right?
Right.
You have a lot of companies that struggled to get through through some of these COVID lockdowns, and some of the new government regulations that have come out. It's a challenge. If
Yeah.
you're there in front of the customer, understanding that, building those relationships, maintaining the relationship, and really driving that portion of it forward, like, that's how you're going to do that. And it takes the manager. It's 100% top down. Most senior executives need to be involved in this thing, and it's a whole system that you're running. You're running an offense that needs to be inherent in your company, and you just got to make sure you're executing and not just checking a box. And that, I mean, that's a super long-winded answer to an easy question, but there's a lot that goes into it, man. And it's, I think what's the average tenure of an executive right now is probably about 16 to 18 months, something like that.
Wow.
And you build that relationship, they're going to go somewhere and they're going to take you if you're memorable. If you're
Right.
not, you're just going to be another person.
One of the things that I stole, I don't know if you ever read Harvey McKay, but I stole from Harvey McKay. He had the McKay 80s, whatever, and they had, back in the day, they had these folders for each client and all of these blanks to fill in information about your client.
Yeah.
I remember reading him 30 years ago, whatever, and into my CRM, I built Frankie's Fabulous 14, and it was the 14 things I want to know about
Yeah.
every one of my clients. And I didn't want to interview them. So, Anthony, did you ever play baseball? So, Anthony, who's your favorite sports team? Hey, by the way, what kind of car do you drive? Hey, Ann, where do you vacation? You're not doing that. But during the course
100%.
of conversations, I'm stealing those bits of information that you give me and I'm jotting them down somewhere. And now with the technology I have, it's forefront in my CRM. So when I open my CRM, Anthony, and I want to make a call to you as my client, I can remember that 6 months ago, you got a dog named Joey and you were having trouble training him to stay within and you got electric fencing. And my conversation is, Anthony, how's it going? Hey, did the electric fencing work for the dog? Did he bust through? I'm thinking about getting
Yeah.
the dog myself. I'm making and I think the thing with that is you've got to be sincere. So unpacking that a little bit is don't ask gratuitous nonsense just because, hey, how about them Yankees? If because you know the guys in New York, know what you're talking about, have a sincere interest in the client, and create real human connections. Yeah.
Yeah. Agree with you 100%. And people are going to remember that. I think the
Yeah.
old thing when we first got into the business was remember the receptionist's name, because when you call back and you speak to them by their name, it totally changes their demeanor and they're more likely to give you information. That was the number
Yeah.
one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to add the layer to that is give a darn about the receptionist's name and what she does.
Yeah.
It's one thing to memorize the name. It's another thing to really care about it and have a conversation with that person too. People matter. That's what we're talking about, the difference with AI and people. So, one of the things that happens, salespeople, they walk in and, this thing that has become the fish on the wall, right? So how do you gain rapport with people without fulfilling the fish on the wall stereotype? How does that begin for you?
Well, listen, I think, in today's world, it's like it's okay to be a stalker, right? Because there's so much information available.
Right.
And that's another thing that differentiates people is how are you getting ready for your sales call? Like, what do you know about the person? How do you layer that into your conversation where you're not going, "Hey, wow, I see you fish." Like, that's cool. Like, yeah, it's layering your talk track that's going to center around some of the stuff that they do, and it's having points that you're going to mention based on what you know about them. And then they'll say, "Oh, well, let them bring it out." "Oh, well, I do this." "Oh, well, that's really great." "Well, like, hey, it's really funny, like when I did this, like here's how it kind of tied in." And you're changing the conversation because now they see you as a person, you're relevant, you're relatable, and you're breaking all the walls down that every other salesperson's coming in and say, "Wow, that's cool. You have a Yankee hat on your thing there. Big Yankees fan, huh?" Like,
Yeah.
ask a better question. You know what I mean? It's asking that next level question.
What's interesting to me, Anthony, is that you stand apart from a lot of sales professionals I've spoken to because so far you've talked about asking good questions, I don't know how many times. So it obviously is a big part of what you teach and what you do. Where did you learn this? Like who taught you that questioning is a good idea versus, showing up and fire hosing your information at your client?
Look, I've had the opportunity to work for a lot of really great people in my tenure, right? So, starting off as a rookie rep, I was just a sponge. I worked for a guy in New York. His name was Joe Savino. I still talk to him to this day. And he just laid it out. I told him what I wanted to do, and he told me exactly how to do it, and I was able to get there. So I'm forever thankful for that.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Look, man, like you got to ask questions and you got to sit and you got to listen." because it's real easy to go in and throw up all this information and talk about how great you think you and your company are. But at the end of the day, it's about the customer, and you can't forget that, and you can't lose sight of that. And I just took that, and I just, it evolved over time, and you learn to get better. And, you know, again, like I've worked for a lot of different people, so you see what good is, you see what not good is, what not to say or
Right.
do. And then once you get to a certain level, it just gets to the next level, gets it, it just keeps going up. And that's something we talk about a lot here at Milner. Our president, Tom, he does a great job with asking questions that you wouldn't even think to ask. And you would think, look, you get to a certain level, you're like, I got all this stuff. And then he comes up with all this extra stuff, and you sit there and you're like, man, like, well, that's why the guy's the president. Like, he gets it. Like, it's kind of, and there's just so much it's just, you take a step back. Wow, there's still a lot more to learn. And you got to constantly be a student of the game and listen. But, that's, again, like, you sit there, the more better you have to really listen. You ask the question, then you listen. That sets up your next question, and then the next one after that, and that's how you have real conversations. And fortunately, I've had the opportunity to work with some great people that allowed me to get that, and that's just something that we talk about a lot.
Um, in terms of the learning part, are there any books, podcasts, programs that you've been through that stand out in your mind that you say, gee, I learned a lot from this or that? Or was it mostly OJT and mentors that you've had?
That's a lot of mentors. I mean, look, I listen to some of the podcast stuff. I think some of them are good. The Sales Hack is a good podcast. They get some really great sales folks on there that are in different businesses and how they get in front of people and what they do. I take some of the stuff from Grant Cardone has a couple of books the 10X programs that he has. It might not be relevant to our space, but the mindset that you get from that and some of his goal setting programs, to me, I think are some of the best, right?
Okay.
And really, you're holding yourself accountable. And look, I like some of the older books too. Like, look, to me, the first version of Spin Selling, I learned so much during that. You followed up with the Challenger sale. I still think the more you educate your customer, the better position you're in. But you could get a lot of different things from a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily need to be in your industry, but if you weave them all together, it really puts you in a good headspace and allows you to think different when approaching a prospect or your team or an organization. I feel like it's almost like a lost art, right? Everybody reads a book and they're like, all right, I'm going to take all this stuff and I'm going to dump it on the team. And then I'm going to wait like 2 weeks. And if it doesn't turn the whole place around, I'm going to scrap it. And then we're going to start something else. And,
Right.
I think that you take it and you weave it together, you make it yours, and then you kind of go from there.
Yeah, you take the pieces out of a bunch of stuff. Everything that you listen to, there should be a gem or two in anything that you go through. Do you think, what we do as sales professionals, right? Especially, your business is very face to face. It's very super competitive. So, your folks have to be out there looking for new business all the time, getting referrals, keeping their existing clients happy, all that. How do you see the role of the salesperson changing over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think there'll be huge differences for us?
No, I think the the sales folks that I think right now is a pretty unique time, right? I think there's a big opportunity for really good sales reps to get to that next level and create an unbelievable amount of differentiation between the mediocre sales reps, right? The
Okay.
ones that adopt some of this technology and are going to be a student of the game and are open to learning more, they're going to create major separation. And that's where I really see with the next 5 to 10 years. I think the good reps are going to get way better, and bad reps are just going to exist,
Yeah.
and they're going to start to fall off.
Yeah, I've often said that. I think if you're not changing and you're not learning, especially these ideas about how to gain rapport, how to humanize the interaction while still keeping your eye focused on what you have to do, you're going to lose to point and click technology, because what do I need you for?
Yeah.
If you're not going to be shepherding me through the process, helping me to understand it, helping me to make better decisions, and really bringing that kind of value, what do I need you for? I can Google the information that you can bring. You're not going to tell me more than AI or Google about your product. But you can tell me about the experiences of other companies like mine and these kind of esoteric bits. And I think if you study, as you said, if you're a student of the game, then you're bringing that forward with your prospects, and then they come to rely on you. And when people rely on you, you won't be, competing on price alone at the bottom of the heap.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's what winds up happening. So, it's funny because my final question on a lot of the podcasts is about charity work. So, would you just expand a little bit more on some of the things that you've done within the good works that you're doing, and if anything's coming up in the future, any charities that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so a couple things. So first, I want to go back to a conversation that you're a sharp guy, Frank, that you might remember when I met you. I think the second time that we were trying to you were trying to recruit me away from car,
Yeah.
and you said something that resonated with me that to this day still sits in. You were like, "Look, I have all my guys join some sort of charitable organization because I think it's that important to give back."
Yeah.
So for the folks that listen, like that's something that I listened to, and I
Wow.
still remember where we were even when you said it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that knowledge with me because that's something I've instilled in myself and all the folks that I work with. So I think that's a huge, huge thing.
That's great to hear, Anthony. I really think it's that important. And it's funny because I never went into any of the charity work I did looking for anything other than to help the organization. Coolizemia Foundation, you see on the wall behind me,
Of course.
I've been 40 years a board member there and a member of the Columbus Citizens Foundation uptown in Manhattan. And both of those, it was really about the the goals of those organizations. And yet I can tell you that most of the great business deals I've done, I've been invited to do, et cetera, especially speaking gigs that I've gotten, or I go out and I train sales teams, I do sales seminars for big companies, et cetera. Most of the invitations I've gotten to other companies have come from people I met in the charity world.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because you don't go in there looking for that, but you really can't avoid it.
Well, of course, for sure. You
So
know,
it's a great thing for salespeople to do. I appreciate you taking the time with us today, Anthony. Do you have a question that I should ask my next guest? I often ask my guys, do you have anything you want me to ask the next person coming up? And I don't know exactly who that is yet.
yeah, that's a tough one. I don't, I mean, uh, yeah, listen, I don't know that I have one. I mean, I mean, we were talking about AI, be like, I guess ask them, what are you afraid of? Like,
Right. What are you afraid of?
that's probably the easiest one that I would throw out there to them. What are you afraid of? It's such it's such an advantage when it comes to doing almost every aspect of business that I just, if there's no reason to be scared. You just got to understand it, learn how to weave it into your game.
I appreciate that. And Anthony, while we're on here, for whoever listened, why don't you do a quick commercial for Milner or anything else that you feel like you want folks to know about, and then we'll wrap up and put some links in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Frank, as you mentioned, I'm with an organization called Milner. We are a family-owned organization that helped invent the industry. Their lineage goes all the way back to the Laniers. We covered the entire Southeast, the Northeast. Now we have a goal of expanding through every state throughout the country. We don't just do copy print. We do everything from we have a telephony division, we have a media division, we do managed IT and cybersecurity as well.
Wow.
We're growing in all different pockets of business. There's tons of opportunity here. And the beauty of it is we're not owned by a PE. We're still owned by the Milners. Are now our fifth generation in the business was just born.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're super excited about that. We couldn't ask for a better ownership group, and we're super happy about it. And tons of opportunity. We're looking for some really great sales folks and some leadership to join the team as we expand, and unlimited opportunities to grow within the organization. So there's my commercial for it. I've been here 4 years. We've done a lot, and we continue to do a lot. But if you're looking for a place to hang your hat, there's no better place in my mind in the business and in the industry. And as Frank mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things is, we give back to really three major charities. Number one, water safety and drowning water prevention. We're very, very involved in that for various reasons. Number two, veterans. We 18% of our workforce, they're served in some branch of the military.
Wow.
We support veterans. And then lastly, we're huge supporters of the YMCA throughout the country. We do a lot of work with the South Florida Y. We do a lot with the Tampa, St. Pete, Montclair, Ridgewood, all over the country, and Southwest Y now. And, we just feel that they're unbelievable organizations. They're great causes, and it's something that's near and dear to everyone's heart here. So, we're involved in the community. We're out here. We're growing. We're super excited. We got a lot of great stuff going on. So, Frank, appreciate you letting me share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anthony, if I am a sales professional, I want to get a hold of you and see about your company or anything else, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can catch me on LinkedIn. My profile is public. Shoot me an email at adelgrosso@milner.com. So yeah, either way is probably the best way.
All right, Anthony DelGrosso, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you being on and bringing a lot of this understanding to our audience, and I'll look forward to putting this episode out and people getting big value from it. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
All right, man.
Ready to take your sales team or event to the next level? Visit franksomma.com to discover how Frank can coach your top performers, deliver a tailored workshop for your team, or captivate your audience with a content-packed keynote at your next event. Frank's best-selling book, B2B is really P2P, is now available on Amazon and Frank's website. Here's a special offer. As a valued listener, mention this podcast when you contact Frank and receive a 10% discount on your first coaching session, keynote, or workshop booking.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Selling in the Age of AI. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of the topics we discussed, and of course, to connect with our amazing guests. I have to shout out big love to my production team, Neeks, Angelo, Nico of Digital Presence. You guys rock. If you want your digital presence to explode, check these guys out at digitalpresence.team. And until next time, remember, people can't point and click you. Be the difference maker for your prospects and clients.